what works best for me as a stakeholder is to get from the team something that summarizes the message in a very succinct form, maybe a few pages long, and that has the findings organized by objectives, and that points out maybe the tentative recommendations. And of course, because I'm a technical stakeholder, I really would like to see teams present the technical issues that they're planning to cover in the report, and also any technical criteria, because that's very important for me to review. I think the worst thing that can happen to a stakeholder who is going to participate in a message agreement meeting is to receive a complete draft of the report with just a few days in advance. Of course, apart from the difficulty of going through the whole draft in such a short time, it's difficult to kind of get a gist of the message and provide comments that can improve the report if the report is already in a form that looks like almost final. Additionally, even when you're providing something in a shorter document, the team can do a better job if they present the findings in the traditional GAO condition, criteria, cause, effect format, which makes it very easier for us to review as stakeholders and comment and provide helpful comments.
As a stakeholder, I appreciate it when teams contact me early and often. I also really appreciate those teams that exhibit a willingness during design to explore advanced or alternative methodologies that would advance their message. In addition, I appreciate a heads up a few weeks in advance of milestone meetings like message or design. As a stakeholder, I find it frustrating when teams have unfocused analysis plans. That is, they treat data analysis as if it's a very broad sifting process whereby they're going to find a gold nugget by sifting through a wheelbarrow of dirt. I also find frustrating the directive that our director wants it that way if the team can't give me a reasoned explanation of why. Finally, I find it frustrating when teams revisit the same questions repeatedly, even when a path forward has been suggested.
As a stakeholder, I think it's really important for teams to focus primarily on doing the work necessary to identify the root cause of the problem or the condition we've identified. Once you've identified the root cause, it really allows us then to focus specifically on actions an agency can take to improve the operations of the program. So making sure you do the work necessary to identify the root cause and then come up with potential recommendations to address those root causes are really key to having a successful message agreement discussion. I think what doesn't work for me as a stakeholder is when teams put too much information on the table, and it really gets in the way of a very thoughtful, meaningful discussion among the stakeholders. I would strongly encourage teams to keep their documents brief, 10, 12 pages, and make sure we have sufficient information to judge the strength of the argument and to see whether the recommendations logically follow from the information you present. As I've been saying here more recently, I think it should be about less writing and more thinking.
It's really important for teams to connect with your attorneys as early as possible, even before initiation. Send them an email, pick up the phone, ask them out for tea, get to know them. This is going to pay big dividends in friendship and trust down the road when the draft needs to be fine-tuned, language needs to be changed, and many, many other stakeholders have to be satisfied. What not to do is don't forget that you have an attorney. I had a team call me recently. They their report was scheduled to go to agency the next week. They called me Friday morning at 9:30 and said that they needed their 124 immediately so the report could actually go out to agency, and that they were sorry that they had forgotten something, and that something they had forgotten was that they had an attorney who needed to sign off on the report. So I went ahead and did the 124, but no, that's not always possible because I have 19 jobs, not just one, and 124s don't get turned around that quickly in general.
first thing that should be done in terms of message agreement is the fact that, or exercising the fact that you should go sooner than later to your stakeholders. It's better to have those intellectually honest discussions early on to determine the scope of the work, determine the appropriateness and the methodology and those sort of things. And certainly as a chief and as a specialist, that's important to try and, as I want to help the team succeed, to determine exactly what's right and how I can help them succeed in their work. The key thing in my mind that teams should not do in terms of message development is embodied in 2 words, and I just call it no theater. The idea being that we come in with a preordained message. We really don't want to hear our stakeholders. It's just really a message agreement that is kind of preordained and wired in such a way that there is not any flexibility to change things. And I think that's unhealthy because it falls outside of what I know the executive committee wants to do with an open process. The idea of moving away from sort of what I've heard the COO called the straight A perfectionism into how we iterate and make the job better over time. And message is a key time to have those intellectually honest discussions, open discussions, willingness to change and listen, and then yet be reasonable with respect to the remaining work and the scope.
Well, although I lead jobs on budget issues in SI, I stakeholder across the organization to provide technical assistance to teams as they do their work. And involving me early in the design phase is really helpful because that allows me to help the teams identify appropriate information and the most efficient way to gather it. And then also including me throughout the design phase and collection and analysis is really great because that way, as data anomalies come up, I can help you resolve them. They invariably always come up, so that way I can be as efficient and helpful as possible. What's less helpful to me as a stakeholder is when I receive long outlines at message agreement and nothing is highlighted. When teams can point me to particular sections that they'd like me to focus on, that enables me to turn around a draft a bit quicker for them and let them get going with their work.